take us through a typical EQ improvement journey for an employee within an enterprise?
Yeah. Okay, so I would say the first step is awareness. Second step is action. So people can take a research-based EQ assessment like ours at TalentSmart EQ to really understand their baseline. And I think that's really important because then it gives you a snapshot in time about what's working and what might need to be tweaked a little bit. So people have this ability to really reflect on their strengths and maybe discover some blind spots. The next step is action, right? So training and coaching can be some great next steps after assessment. But at the individual level, once you've got a background on emotional intelligence, the best thing to do would be to pick one or two habits to practice, because EQ grows really through micro behaviors. It's not at the macro theory level. So I'll give you an example. I had somebody who came through a session just a couple of weeks ago who decided that they were going to focus on noticing the emotional ripple that they create. So every emotion that you express sends a ripple through the people around you, right? Sometimes it's small. So you do something and you can see an eye roll in somebody else or a slight smile across a conference table. Sometimes it is big. So snapping at a teammate when you're in danger of losing a big contract or publicly celebrating someone closing a huge deal, right? Most of us assume that our emotions are self-contained, but they are not. So some things that you could practice, I think of these as micro experiments. So someone can reflect on their last sort of like oops moment. So think about a time this week or last week when your mood or your reaction shaped somebody else's. You know, did you bring stress home? Did someone go quiet after a joke? Did you sort of rush, the check-in at the beginning of a call? And you want to ask yourself, what emotion was I feeling? Who caught it? And what did they do next? Because I think if you manage people, that can be really insightful to start to reflect on what you're doing and the impact it's having on others. And then you can ask, right? What is it like to be on the other side of me when I'm stressed? So that's one. A second one, from an observation perspective, you can think to yourself about what happens after you leave the room. After your next meeting or one-on-one, think about what kind of energy did I leave behind? Are people leaning into those conversations or are they shutting down? Am I creating tension or traction? And I think you can try this at home too. I think partners and children don't fake it. So I think they'll give you pretty good feedback if you ask. And then I think the third is just to experiment, right? This is what we're constantly doing with emotional intelligence is you're practicing. So shift your tone on purpose. Choose a moment where you feel like you would maybe naturally be a little bit short or a little bit snarky, and maybe go in the other direction. Say thanks, sort of lead with warmth in your eye contact, and then, pay attention to what shifts.
Yeah, these are amazing feedbacks and micro habits that you talk about. Thank you for that.